Let's now bring in Professor Mike Otieno, head of the School of Civil and Environmental Engineering at WITS. Thank you so much, Prof, for your time. Just help us unpack then how, the rescue teams are navigating this complexity of this particular mission. I mean, we understand the teams have implemented, as we've also heard just a little bit earlier on, more substantive concrete breakers and additional trucks to remove building rubble from the site. And given that this is a multi-story collapse building, with 3,000 tons of concrete to work around, one can only imagine the level of sophistication and expertise that are needed here.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me, and good afternoon to you and to your listeners and viewers. So first, I must convey my condolences to the families who have lost their loved ones thus far in this an unfortunate incident, and can only hope that as many as are still alive under the rubble can be rescued. So, as you rightly say, this is quite a complex situation to deal with, and it is always the case when we are dealing with a collapsed building. And the reality here is that this is a multi-agency operation that's now at place. In as much as we want to try and rescue and save as many lives as possible, I think we also have to understand that in the process, we must gather as much information and as much evidence as possible to help us get to the bottom of this matter. It is not easy, and as you rightly say, now there's a huge amount of concrete rubble that's lying on site, and I'm hoping that there are still lives under this rubble that can be saved. And with moving in of heavy machinery and equipment into this site, it's quite important that a lot of care is taken to try and ensure that if there is any life under this rubble, it can still be saved. And that would require, of course, the involvement of structural engineers. Structural engineers are not only involved in the design of structures to start, but they are also quite important when it comes to these kinds of rescue missions. And they would understand what is safe in terms of what the rescuers going into site to try and save those who are under the rubble, and also trying to ensure that those who are under the rubble still are not affected in a negative way with any failures that can still occur as a result of the rescue mission. So yes, it is quite a complex multi-agency operation that needs to be handled very carefully.
Now, in terms, as it stands now, there are several investigations that are on the go, to try and figure out what could have caused this collapse. Just help us understand where investigators would need to start, their fact finding. And as you also rightfully point out, that the involvement of structural engineers would probably play a very good part.
Yes, so structural engineers will play a very good part. I have watched a CC footage of the collapse of this five-story building, and my sense is that there was a failure of a critical member in the lower floors of this structure that led to this collapse. So it is going to be quite important at this stage, and that is why earlier on I mentioned that as much information needs to be collected. When I say information needs to be collected, this is information that can help basically get to the bottom of this matter. For us to do this, we need the involvement of professional engineers. So this is where now the Engineering Council of South Africa really needs to step up and play a huge role. And I know that they have made a statement with regards to this collapse. And a very competent team has been, in terms of a consulting engineering firm, has been tasked to try and get to the bottom of this matter. So it's going to be quite critical in terms of trying to understand what really happened, getting witness accounts of the events that led to just before and after this collapse, and try to piece all these things together. It's going to be a forensic investigation, and it is not going to be a straightforward one. And at the end of the day, it is going to be how well we can stitch all these pieces of information that will be collected together to make a big picture in terms of what really happened to lead to this collapse.
And now just going back to, the dangers around this, particular site. I mean, in terms of the construction site, it is dangerously close to other buildings we've been seeing in some of the pictures that we saw. How stable would the environment need to be, for the rescue missions and, to happen safely? And of course, bearing in mind the rescue teams and those that are still trapped underground, with this heavy machinery that is now being used.
So, yes, this is why it is very important that, as I've mentioned, competent structural engineers are involved in the operation at every stage, especially now that I hear that heavy machinery is to be brought in. This is going to cause, I assume they would want to start breaking the concrete rubble, the slabs and the beams, and this would cause some vibrations in that vicinity. And the houses that are close by would be affected in one way or another by this. And whether this would be catastrophic to the houses or structures nearby would need to be assessed by structural engineers so that a green light can be given in terms of how to proceed, because this is quite important. If this is not done, we could end up with other secondary effects in terms of affecting nearby buildings. Rescuers could also put their lives at risk, and ultimately we could end up losing lives that are under the rubble that could have been saved.
Prof, thank you so much for your time. Really do appreciate it. Of course, that was Professor Mike Otieno, head of the School of Civil and Environmental Engineering at Wits University.